so that everybody understands what robotics is. That's it, rather than zap somebody with some robotic movements. It's not about impressing anyone. It's just about getting data across in a nice, smooth manner. So, Dr. Martha.
Good morning, everyone. We are live for our 136th weekly session on CMAAO platform, a platform for all the doctors to share the knowledge, a think tank, a roundtable conference, which happens every week. And we bring a speaker who shares the knowledge on this platform, tells us what's going on in the world. We discussed about AI last week, and now we have robotics, something which is of interest for a lot of people. And we have today Mr. S Rajkumar. He's a chairman and the chief surgeon for Lifeline Group of Hospitals. He's a senior consultant laparoscopic surgeon. Sir, the platform is yours, please.
Thank you, Saurabh. I'd like to start by once more saluting the memory of one of the greatest doyens of medical history, Dr. K.K. Agarwal. I say this not just as lip service. You will know as I go on, I'm absolutely incapable of just paying lip service. I'm a very brutally honest guy who prefers to be brutal to being honest sometimes. And I think he's one of the persons who give not just this platform, but many other platforms. So with my salutations to this great man, Dr. K.K. Agarwal, and my promise to get more actively involved and to spread this around, to kind of spread the love around, as we rockers used to say, we'll start this talk. I'd like to thank personally Tanuja Bisht and Saurabh for having put this together. So don't panic, don't worry. I'm not going to bore you with fine technical details. And as I tell all the students when I speak, when I come out in 20, 30 minutes, every one of you will have a much brighter idea about what we're going to talk about. And you'll be able to utilize that in your daily life some way or the other. So here we go. As it says in chapter 1, para 1 of the Rig Veda, it says, Ano batraha kritvo yantu vishvataha. Let noble and divine thoughts come into our heads from all directions. I'm going to share the screen so you probably won't have to look at my ugly mug, but instead you'll see some interesting slides.
Yeah, you can share.
So when robotic surgery first burst upon the scene, there was a lot of skepticism. What are these guys talking about? Those of you who can see me, when you're free, try to get this book called Heroes, or write to me and I'll have a copy sent free for you. For those of you interested, that's Chhatrapati Shivaji on top, Bharadiyar pillow, Subramania Bharadiyar, the great poet, Bhagat Singh on one side, and Rani Velu Nachia. It's a story about freedom fighters. All right, here we go. So at one point of time, robotics was looked at very, very skeptically, very skeptically. Is that a next take a click on it. Oh, it's correct. But now it's become the standard of care. It's become the standard of care in many, many areas. And it is predominantly driven, I must be honest here, by the videos, the American market. The American market. Why? Like a famous American slogan, it's the economy, stupid. It's predominantly driven by the DARPA, because the first major robotic system was Da Vinci, and Da Vinci was owned by the Defense Association of the United States, the DARPA, and it was initially economy driven, but now it's becoming the standard of care. So what do we exactly mean by robotics? People have this vision about some android-like robotic, like Chitty, the robot, walking in and operating on somebody. So first thing I must tell you is that's not robotics at all. So you can see this is our entire team, and these are the, can you see, these are all the robotic arms, the robotic arms. So robotic surgery is not a robot coming and operating on your mother. It's the surgeons utilizing robotic arms to get in there, after which we use the computer to allow us to do high precision surgery. So you can see here that we are in the process of training every robot. This is a robotic, it's a shoulder, a wrist, and hands. So there's a joke saying robots don't make very good friends because they all have a chip on their shoulder. That's classic for a robot. There's a chip on its shoulder there. And you can see each one of these are what they call robotic arms going into the abdomen. And we will be able to control these robotic arms and perform surgeries. So what exactly is happening in here? So you use the mechanical arms, but these mechanical arms are controlled by the surgeons. So number one, we have master controls to manipulate the instruments. And these instruments, they translate our movements into the patient's body. So this makes use of a unique set of circuits called master-slave circuit. So master and slave, it will do whatever the surgeon wants it to do. That's why they say, even when the robot is going to work out, it always chooses circuit training because it's all about circuits. So people always think, many of my patients, even today, will ask me, sir, I don't want your robot operating on me. I want you operating on me. And I have to tell them, boss, it's me. It's not this kind of Android. It's called Android or anthropomorphic machine that's going to operate upon you. It's going to be me. It's going to be me directing the robotic arms and making use of their advantages to get some precision. What are the advantages? You look at my hand, even the best surgeon, you can do 180, maybe 200 degrees of twisting when you have to suture. But this is a machine. It will go 360, 360, 360, 3-4 times within seconds. So we are trying to make use of the mechanical disadvantages of the human wrist and fingers, translate that into high precision movements, but the brain part is ours. It's not the robots. So you can look at the history of robotic surgery, busy slide. Don't worry. I just want to tell you guys, many people say, oh, is it 2 years old? It's not. It's nearly 50. It's about 45 years old. So from 1988, when the first surgery was done in London, actually 85, biopsies, it's now at about 48 years into robotics. And it's run through the entire gamut of operations. You can see gallbladders, you can see spinal procedures, knee procedures, prostatectomies, hysterectomies. I'll soon tell you which are the best operations to be done robotically. So what are the robotic surgery systems? This is just for your general knowledge. You all know the god Zeus, the Greco-Roman god Zeus. So the Zeus system was one of the first ones that came in and then was replaced by intuitive surgical or Da Vinci. Now I'll tell you what is an intuitive movement. So when you operate normally, open surgery, if I want to catch, say, the liver or catch the spleen and move it this way, I catch my hand and move it this way. But when I do it laparoscopically, because my instrument is going in through a fulcrum, if I want to move the spleen to the right, I shift my instrument to the left because it works with a fulcrum. These are called counterintuitive movements. With robotics, the movements are intuitive, which means you're back to open surgery. If I want to move the spleen to the right, with a robotic, I move it to the right only. I don't move it to the left like in laparoscopic surgery. It's very fascinating that intuitive movements, open surgery, got translated and changed into counterintuitive movements in laparoscopic surgery, accounting for a very sharp learning curve. It's all in the brain. It's all in this fascinating billion neuron mix that we have up there. Everything is up there. And then came once more intuitive robotic surgery, where you don't have to make that shift in your circuits here. You just have to do like open surgery. Very, very important. This means I took maybe years, and I still train hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laparoscopic surgeons every year. We take years and years to train a laparoscopic surgeon to perform a fine movement, which would have been much easier in open surgery. Bang! Enter robotic surgery. Whatever the laparoscopic surgeon is trained to do in 10 years or 15 years, a good robotic surgeon can do that in 1 year or 2 years if he knows his open surgery. Therefore, and this will probably be one of many of you will have brothers, sisters, children who are planning to be surgeons, minimal invasive surgeons. Remember, it used to be open and a very steep learning curve to laparoscopy. And then struggle. Now it's open, jump very smoothly to robotic. To hell with the poor laparoscopic surgeons. That's what it's become. Now, the last two systems are now rocking the scene everywhere. One is called the CMR, or Cambridge Medical Robotic Systems, very close to my heart because I'm one of the mentors for the CMR robot. The robot from CMR is known as the Versius, Versius. And the last robot is a robot called Hugo by a company called Medtronics. So between 1997, when the Da Vinci robot, all these are named after the great Da Vinci. And you know, the name robot itself came from Isaac Asimov, a writer of science fiction. A robot means a mechanized worker. He wrote this in a science fiction when he said humans would become automatized into machines, and that would be called robots. It comes from the Czechoslovakian slang, but Isaac Asimov, whether he's remembered for science fiction or not, is really being remembered for the word robot. So then in 2001, the Zeus came in, and then in 2001, a doctor in New York removed the diseased gallbladder of the 68-year-old patient in Strasbourg. This doctor is a personal friend of mine and somebody whom I worked with in IRCAD. IRCAD is a huge institution in Strasbourg. Strasbourg is in France, and his patient was in France, but Dr. Jacques Meresco and his team of Leroy, etc., they were all sitting in New York, and they operated on their patient who was in France and removed her gallbladder. And this was the first transatlantic operation in the whole world. You all know that Charles Lindbergh did the first transatlantic flight. So this is known as the Lindbergh operation, or a transatlantic operation, operating from New York, patient in France. Why? Because the movements of Meresco and Leroy on the Zeus robotic system were transmitted identically with very, very minimal time or temporal delay across the Atlantic to France. Now, imagine in the future, I'm sitting in Chennai or Dubai, and I can operate on one patient in Nigeria, one patient in Ghana, one patient in Ethiopia, and one patient in India. All they need is that they need, just as all of us are connected today on a Zoom, and we can connect up with each other. In the future, and I tell you, this is not going to happen in 50 years or 100 years. It will happen in the next few years, in 3 or 4 years. All of us will live at a time when tele-robotic surgery becomes feasible. And if there's a complex case, and if you have one guy who's the best at doing it, the local surgeons in the other countries will be able to utilize his skill sets and his knowledge base and his experience, and use the robot and use the circuitry of the robot to transmit that skill and knowledge across. And I can tell you one more thing. With 5G, with such denser connectivity, the reproduction of the movements and the time loss, we have a time lag of microseconds, becomes even less. So it will almost be like operating in real time. I know as doctors, you'll be jumping and say, yeah, you're operating from Dubai. What happens if there's a bleed in Nigeria? Are you going to take a flight? No. I understand that you will need a safety net. You will need local doctors there. You will need a doctor. That's why in the very first slide I showed you, I was actually standing outside, and you can see the doctors. There are surgeons who are putting the stuff inside. You can see these are all my team members. You know, I'm not in this group at all. I'm outside because I'm not yet started the surgery. They're just putting it inside. That's me giving you a thumbs up. And then I'm just going to go from there and sit on the robotic console. Fascinating concepts, after all, as Elon Musk said. the future of the world is about concepts, right? So for me, the concept of sitting in one place and operating, thousands of miles away, if that can be shrunk, surgery will become accessible to everyone. Nobody should be unable to access a surgery because he can't fly across geographies. It will become what they call geography agnostic, and it will happen over the next few years itself. So you can see the Intuitive and Computer Motion announced a huge merger agreement, and we are personally involved with this Cambridge Medical Robotics, started in 2014, and with the main medical director of Cambridge Robotics is a very personal friend of mine. So this is a joke about robot saying, why did the robot go back to robot school? Because his skills were getting a little rusty. I know, not amazing jokes, but best there are. So you can look at this. I just want you to have a look at this. And I'm actually, though I'm a GI surgeon, operate the belly, I'm fascinated by the brain and what the brain does and how every movement that you do on somebody else's body actually happens 1/16 of a second before that in your own head. And your cingulate gyrus projects this on. And then it comes from the frontal cortex to the fingers and then be able to do it. And this is called the brain-eye-hand coordination. Now, you will find that these are some of the applications for robotics. Assisting in eye surgery. This bottom one is the one that we do most. Master-slave robot for minimally invasive surgery, or this one is a scope holder. Now I have to have an assistant to hold my telescope and show me the spleen or the gallbladder, uterus, hernia. Imagine why should I waste a surgeon for that? I can just have a scope holder robot. I say, for example, one of my friends called Suresh Deshpande, from Kolhapur, he came up with this thing called Swarm. He just has his name of the robot is Swarm. Swarm, move to the right 20 degrees and the robot will do it. Swarm, move down 15 degrees. And interestingly, it works pretty well. You don't need to waste a highly trained surgeon for that. And the surgeons can just stand beside you and look at the monitor and still learn. So in an era where high-tech human resource personnel are scarce, it's very, very good to have this going. Guys, a quick feedback from any of you. Am I going too fast or am I okay? Is there anybody? Are we all right? Okay, cheers. Thank you, Monica. All right, so we have another 15-20 minutes that you have to tolerate my drivel. So here we go. To complete this transatlantic Lindbergh surgery was done by Zeus. I was talking to you about Jacques Marescot, 2001. I was subsequently with him in 2004 or 2005 and spent some time with him. And again in 2007. Very interesting. Lindbergh transatlantic surgery. So Lenny is the name of Intuitive's first robot. It's an abbreviation for Leonardo da Vinci, possibly the greatest, you all know, probably the greatest polymath that the world has ever seen. So it was used for coronary artery bypass. I'm particularly happy to say that in Detroit, Michigan, the Vatikuti Institute, Vatikuti sounds like a funny name because it's from the south, it's from Kerala, Vatikuti Mohan, and he's got a lot of interests in Malaysia and Singapore too, I think. So he was the first one to document this process of the robotic assisted prostatectomy, which today has become the standard of care for cancer of the prostate. Why is that? Because you can't reach the prostate. It's, deep down. God knows it does a lot of trouble for men and women alike, but it's right deep down there. And to reach the prostate is quite difficult. With your hands, it's a blind surgery. The TURP, you only pass a telescope and knock off whichever part of the prostate is abutting into the urethra. That's all. But if it's a cancer prostate, you'll be cutting through large chunks of cancer. So if you want to remove the entire prostate, which is like a cashew, like an almond, hugging the base of the bladder, the best way is to actually use a robot and get into the space deep to the pubic symphysis, go in front of the bladder, dissect out the entire prostate, at the same time making sure you don't damage any of the nerves, which would later cause the patient to be either incontinent or sexually impotent, both equally important. So the patient, after good prosthetic surgery, should be able to point, and he should still be able to shoot, and he'll be able to do. But now this is a classic. It's a Da Vinci, of course, the Da Vinci console. I'll show you our CMR console. This is the console in which the surgeon puts in the head to activate the robot. You can see both the hands working. There are no gloves. You can have a cup of coffee. You can have some fish and chips. Though if you're feeding the the robot eats only microchips. Oops. And these are the robotic arms going in. And this monitor that you see here is for everyone to see, the rest of the people and the assistants. And through this, the console, the surgeon looks at the 3D impact. So Mr. Frost co-founded CMR Surgical in 2014. CMR Surgical created, this is my favorite robot. Everybody's got his own favorite Vercius surgical robot. It's now across UK, France, and across India. We have been very, very happy with this because of the available robots. The Vercius CMR Cambridge Medical Robot is the least expensive robot. Yes, people ask me in Dubai, you guys are only talking about expense, but then that's the only thing that our patients, they talk about. 87% of our patients are uninsured generally in India, and every buck literally matters to them. And I find that the CMR robot increases the price. Lap versus robot, there's an add-on price. The add-on price is much less than the CMR robot. So these are some operations that you can have done. For example, urology. Let me come straight to the meat. A radical prostatectomy, repair of a ureter, nephrectomy, especially partial nephrectomy. You now know that, for cancers of the kidney, we used to knock off the entire kidney. But we now know that you need not do that. They say even if you leave one cell margin, for cancer, stomach, rectum, and all these, we leave huge margins, 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters. One cell margin, 1 or 2 millimeters, and cut through the kidney, it is enough. So if you can do that and save the rest of the kidney, you are doing what is called nephron sparing radical surgery for cancer kidney. Who would like to lose all of their kidney when they can lose only a part of it? And robotics allows us to dissect out the blood vessels that are supplying that segment of the kidney, allows us to remove only that segment. So it's made such a big difference in urology. I find that in general surgery, it's tremendously good, especially in complex surgeries like reflux fundoplication, anti-reflux surgeries, Heller's for complex stuff like median arcuate ligament syndrome, esophagectomy, deep colorectal, pelvic resections, brilliant. The other things that I really, really enjoy doing it are for gynec procedures, like not just a simple hysterectomy, which is a piece of cake, but a radical hysterectomy where you have to dissect out the ureter, tease out the blood vessels supplying the uterus, all of that, brilliant. So general gynec urology is going to soon become an absolutely indisputable adjunct to surgery. But also in neurosurgery, cardiothoracic, and a lot of orthopedic surgery is having a robotic assist. Sometimes I used to joke and say the orthopedic surgeon with his complete headgear suit, he himself already looks like a robot, but they're increasingly utilizing robotic help as well. So why robotic? Why not regular laparoscopy? The kind of precision that you get with robotic is far superior. The depth perception with robotics is absolutely indisputable because you have 3D vision. When you have the right eye and the left eye, simple trick, after you finish the stock, shut one eye and try to pick up a pencil or to put a point and try to get the pencil or pen to that point. Shut the other eye. It'll be difficult. Add both the eyes. You get the depth perception so you can hit that point exactly. You don't need both eyes to recognize your spouse, but you need both eyes to give you that depth perception, so-called binocular vision. And that binocular vision is given by stereoscopic vision or three-dimensional vision. And that is what is obtainable with robotic surgery. Less bleeding because you go very carefully. You can see every little blood vessel is screaming out at you from the rooftops and saying, come and get me, come and get me. The robotic movements of the fulcrum of the instruments that go into the abdomen, in my case, chest in some cases, the kind of fulcrum and movement are situated in such a way that you have much less pain compared to laparoscopic surgery. This bodes for a much smoother recovery process, and therefore stuff like oncological surgeries, lots of lymph node dissection, lots of movements are much, much better. And let me put it very simply. The more complex the surgery, the more the role for robotics. It's just grabbing an appendix out or clipping a tube, a fallopian tube. One doesn't require the precision and the ergonomic support. Ergonomics is something we all talk about. Erg is work, economics. The economics of work is called ergonomics. So you don't need the ergonomic support of a robot to just tie off somebody's tube or to take off somebody's appendix. But anything more complex, certainly it makes a big difference. So the disadvantages, the cons will always be there with the pros: cost, time, learning curve. And I believe that the learning curve is really not such a big disadvantage. It requires some focused training, but it is not as difficult, quite as difficult as the laparoscopic learning curve. And if you look at every learning curve, there are two parts. Can I do basic laparoscopy? Boom. Can I do complex laparoscopy? Up there. Whereas for robotic, it's more or less flat. Once you get it, it's the same for simple, complex diseases, everything. So the learning curve tends to be flatter, much flatter for robotic surgery compared to the bimodal, smaller jump, higher jump kind of situation for robotic surgery. Cost, undoubtedly. The robots cost one arm and one leg, naturally, at this point of time. But you all know about Moore's law. Look at the phones. The phones that we had used to cost so much in the 90s, and they used to be huge. They used to be like these, like the security guards walkie-talkie. But the phones have become smaller, faster, smarter, and cheaper. And therefore, this is Moore's law. He said once in 4 years, it will halve. He was wrong. It's actually halving once in 2 years, once in 1.5 years. The price is halving, the speeds are doubling, and the same circuits are operational in a robotic setup. So tremendously, the cost has come down over the last 15, 20 years, and it will keep coming down. The time to dock a robot or to get it started takes some time. And this is one thing that we find prevents us from using robotic surgery for emergencies. But this is a system that is a work in progress. There is constant growth, and these are robots having nerves of steel. That's why they never get scared. It's the surgeons who get scared. A few robotic surgeries, I hope it doesn't affect the softer-minded. You can see that I'm operating from the console, and you can see this is the hook that I'm using on my right side, the CMAAO robot, and it's got blue. And as I fire, you can see it will flash there, which means that diathermy is being used. And my left-hand instrument is this green robot in which I'm holding this. All the robots are color-coded. My right-hand instrument contains this bipolar forceps, and you can see how I'm doing the dissection there. This is a robotic, and that's the liver in the background. This is the gallbladder, the bread and butter of surgeons all over. And you can see that compared to, this is a standard lab instrument put in there just to hold up the GB. These are the robotic instruments. They're incredibly more complex. They have, for example, in the creation of one robotic limb, there are 55,000 parts, 55,000 joints, whereas we have only a few joints in the human shoulder. I don't think it means that the robotic engineers are wonderful. I think it means that God is so wonderful because he's made such a complex upper limb with just a few joints. Whereas to kind of, you can see a huge stone coming out from there that's being removed. So for us to recreate that is so difficult. And you can see this is the robotic suturing of a gallbladder. You can see the suturing, which is you can see how the jaws of the instrument are so much more agile. If you see laparoscopic suturing, generally tends to be very difficult. The joke is it's like tying your shoelaces using golf clubs. But you can see the number of movements that are possible when you want to do complex suturing laparoscopically. And this is one of the great advantages of robotics. And you can see how the vision is so clear. This is a 3D kind of vision, and the rest of the gallbladder is now being taken out. I won't bore you with all of that. Let's see, this is a robotic hysterectomy. This is a different robotic instrument. Scissors on the right, one small. This is the right. I'm just taking you into the mind's eye of the surgeon. It'll show you which instrument you have on your right, which is on your left. Is it firing? Which one has got the diathermy or electrical connect attached to it? That's the uterus, the tubes, the ligaments, and these are being diathermized or cauterized and being removed. I'm going to show you one important step. As you take out a uterus, you can see the Foley's catheter here. One of the important steps is to disconnect the peritoneum and separate the uterus from the bladder. And you see that happening here. You see, that's the, you can see how that's the cervix or lowermost part of the uterus. Don't think it's bloody. All this together is maybe 5 cc or 3 cc of blood. The bipolar is frying everything so neatly, and that's a uterine artery that's being taken. And you can see I'm using this to cut open the entire, that's the vagina, and the uterus and the cervix that are being removed in total, so that nothing is left. And that's the uterus that's saying bye and departing from the abdomen. So this is a robotic hernia. I have just a couple more, and we're done. And all our videos scaled down from 2 hours to a minute or two, so don't worry. George Bernard Shaw said, speech has got to be like the well-worn skirt of a lady, long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to be interesting. And I'm trying the same. So that's the hook of the robot, dissecting out the space of the hernia. You can see the hernia emerging there, that gap. Can you all see that gap? You're looking at the abdominal wall of this gentleman, and that gap that you can see is the hernia, and you can see a mesh is being put in there to be fixed there to bridge that gap, as it were. And after the mesh is completely fixed and the whole area is covered, we use the robotic suturing. You can see the robotic jaws using proline or PDS to suture metal to completely close the peritoneum and to close that defect in the peritoneum. These are all difficult things to do when you're starting, but robotics allows you to do them very, very quickly. For anti-reflux surgery, you know that there's a big problem all over the world. Every single person is having reflux and heartburn. This is one of the best operations, fundoplication. That's the esophagus, that's the spleen. This is the stomach. And I'm separating the stomach from the spleen all around, freeing, that's the diaphragm, freeing the gullet from the diaphragm. And what we're going to do here, can you see this is the diaphragm? I'm using the robotic suturing to bring these two pillars of the diaphragm together behind the esophagus. This is a hiatus hernia repair, essentially. And then after the hernia is repaired, we bring the stomach from that side, bring it across to this side, and stitch it in such a way that it acts as a wrap around the lower esophagus. You can see that's the stomach itself is being freed from the stomach, brought across from the spleen, brought across to this side, and wrapped and tightened around. This is a bariatric surgery being done robotically. bariatrics is big everywhere, and people are constantly working on newer applications of robotic surgery. So this is one of the things where we're now doing bariatric surgery, especially the complex bariatric surgery is being done robotically, because it involves stitching things, and if they leak with these huge patients, it's a disaster. So that's robotic bariatric surgery. And you can see the staplers going in place to divide the stomach and make this huge pot of a stomach into a narrow sleeve. You can see the patient is only going to be left with this amount of stomach. The rest of the stomach is you're basically giving him a teenager's kind of stomach, teenage girl's stomach at least. And we're doing the stitching again. So that's robotic bariatric. This is some of the stuff we found, for example, that after COVID-19, there was a huge impact on bariatric surgery. We participated in this study across the country. Now, this is one of our original papers. I'm going to finish up with this. Many of your patients will have abdominal pain, vomiting after food, and they will just be called nutters. Actually, what they have is probably this median arcuate ligament syndrome, which causes compression of the celiac artery. It's a condition that causes severe discomfort, pain, and you have to do what's called division of that ligament, and also do what's called a celiac ganglionectomy. And this was our original article in the Saudi Journal of Laparoscopy. So the future of robotic surgery is that now we're having better and better energy devices, staplers to divide. It all makes, like it says in the movie 3 Idiots, machines are made to make men's lives easier, not to make them more difficult. So staplers to divide and suture tissues. Haptic feedback, which means you start getting a feel about when you touch the tissues. And last but not least, nanorobots. I'll tell you what a nanorobot is. It's a tiny robot. If you want to remove the gallbladder, you just put it there and hold the gallbladder, and the little robot will completely separate the gallbladder from the liver. Concepts, but life is about concepts. So you can see this autoclavable haptic sensor to give you a feel of touch in 9 medical fields. It's got 24 plus applications. Haptics means the sense of touching the tissues and knowing what's wrong with them. And one of the major complaints people tell me, who can see this transcript? Anyone can see the transcript. I'm completely open. I can send the whole, my life is an open book, and I'm very happy to send the entire presentation to anybody who wants it. These are the nanorobots, diagnosis, testing, gene therapy. I mean, the kind of things that you can do, you can send little nanorobots into the blood. You can send them into the blood, and they can go inside and change the shape of the blood cells so that they're not cremated and destroyed by the spleen. H.G. Wells wrote 110 years ago, science has only got the limitations based on human imagination. You think it, you can do it. So the latest thing in robots, for example, is something called xenobots. It's amazing. Instead of getting the robots to function like human tissues and human cells, now people are working with artificial intelligence to work on human cells and make them function like robots. These are called xenobots, human cells that are doing something called corralling. Corralling is what a sheepdog does. It corrals the sheep into one place, or they corral the cows to one place. So that corralling are bringing all the cells together. They're looking at xenobots that will corral all the inflammatory cells to a lymph gland where you have infection, or to a throat where you have infection, so that they can then kill all the bugs and the infection doesn't enter the bloodstream, especially in patients with immune suppression. So it's very, very fascinating once you let your mind flow. And it's a real high. You don't need tetrahydrocannabinol to give you this high. It's just so interesting. So here are biologically inspired nanobots. You've got magnetic nanobots. You've got flexible tail nanobots. These nanobots, no guesses, no marks for guessing where these came from. The sperm is the prototype, biologically inspired nanobot. And then they thought, let's give us super sperms. and helical rigid tail nanobots so that they can get quickly to wherever they want to get. Then these are like our cells with cilia tail nanobots. So they'll go there and sit exactly where you want them to sit. And then if you want them to go elsewhere, you can have magnetic field nanobots. So imagine you put a nanobot and you want it to go to the tonsils. You move the magnet and keep it in the tonsil so that the nanobot will go there. Fascinating. And all I want to do, as Socrates said, not to leave you with answers, but to leave you with questions and say, why not? Why not? The future belongs to those who say, why not? Why can't we do this? So look at this. This is mammalian cell-based biohybrid carrier propulsion solution. So some of the cells are robots. Some of the cells are, say, white cells. And the robot will go to the site of the inflammation. You guide it, let's say, with a magnet. The cells that have to get in there, targeted cells, are going with the nanobot. And then they attack the local area. To me, this is fascinating to combine human working with robots. We're playing God. What is better than that? External stimuli. This is, again, you can use ultrasound or a light laser and guide them there. And finally, you can even have lipoproteins or proteins doing internal self-propulsion. You're not making it come out. It's going automatically to, you target it with a lipoprotein. This lipoprotein will have some receptors. These receptors will take it to wherever you want to go, say to where breast cancer cells have gone. So all of these with one fundamental baseline concept to help humanity. I don't know how many of you understand Tamil, but Subramania Bharadiyar said, Vallamai Tarayo in the Manilam Payanura Varvadarke. To be able to help humanity should be the most noble, the noblest and the most ennobling transport of the soul. So to finish up, the current thinking is think laparoscopically, but do robotically, and the possibilities are numerous. So from skepticism, when I started laparoscopic surgery, nobody would ask me, is my patient going to get better? They would only say, why don't you just cut open the gallbladder? It's all expensive stuff, this new stuff. This resistance, inertia to newness, inertia to novelty and innovation is one of the main obstacles to scientific flow. So we've come from skepticism now to the standard of care. Thank you all for listening to me for these 35 to 40 minutes. I really appreciate that those of you who slept didn't snore, and those of you who snored didn't snore into your microphones. I'm very, very happy to take a few questions if Saurabhji feels we've got time. Thank you, guys. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar. I think after a very long time, we have that energy on the speaker side, and I think everybody was absolutely active listening. And I think first time I also seeing this people raising hands to ask questions while in the presentation. So thank you so much. What an excellent talk. I don't think I have enough words to thank you. We can just close the slide so that we can see the faces now.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So we have our chair and we have a president for CMAAO over here. So over to you, Dr. Chong, to take this session. And I think what a way to have this robotic introduction on the CMAAO platform.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar. It was wonderful listening to you. A bit of humor, a bit of philosophy, a bit of quotes from the greats in history, and a combination of everything. Lovely introduction to what a beautiful topic and very inspiring. Thank you very much.
So nice. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm very happy to take that.
I think
Dr. Rajkumar, just before that, I'm already booking you for next 5 sessions in this year, I would say.
All I can do is like Shah Rukh Khan, I can say no problem.
Dr. Sajjad?
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. Excellent, Rajkumar. Excellent, very amazing and very informative presentation. And I can say in a lighter mood that I know the one of the legend from Indian film industry. And you are also an artist of medical field, Rajkumar. So So fantastic presentation, and I am an ENT surgeon.
All right.
I just want to know that this robotic surgery is a killer to a doctor. Our job is in stake. We are in a problem. So how can we then? My question is that you have not mentioned about the ENT surgery, and your list where 9 field was not included ENT. Number one. Number two, are you have any experience of doing the ENT surgery successfully through this robotic procedure? Number one. Number two, for my knowledge, that we do surgery like neck dissection, we feel the glands, we feel the nerves, and we identify the nerves. Oh, this is not vessel, this is nerve, this is artery, this is something. So how can we go in a surgery through a robotic? How can we recognize the nerve, which is very, very important in our field? So we like the parotid surgery. We are very much concerned about the facial nerve. So how can we recognize and save the facial nerve like in parotid surgery or submandibular gland or neck surgery to avoid to save the nerve? So this is my question. And what is the, you said about the future, how can you say that in Asia, particularly in Asia, like India and Pakistan, the people are very much concerned about their surgeons. Who is our surgeon? And say, Dr. Saab, you will do the surgery, or you will do, okay. Then they're satisfied. So do you think in our society, the people will believe that we are going a surgery through a machine or through a remote? So what is the future in this concern?
Achi Sawal, sir. Very good question.
Thank you very much.
Very relevant question. 2 parts. One, are we going to put people out of work? I mean, later today, I have some political inclinations as well. Later today, there's some news discussion about there's a new knitting machine come where you just completely knocks off the workers. You know, you just have to, it's a software program. You put the material inside and you say, I want a jacket like this. There's no stitching. You just get the complete jacket, the pockets, there's no seam, no stitching. But we have 4.5 crore people in India in the garment industry. It's 45 million people in the garment industry. You have to think what's going to happen to them. There'll be all these women stitching and all these all out. So this is called the Luddite response to economy based on Thomas Ludd, L-U-D-D, who said when there was industrialization, he said, if you have a train to take people, what will happen to the horses and the guys who are renting the stagecoaches? Well, the answer is that they will then be employed in the trains. And so a good question, sir. Very good question. The robots will always need the surgeons to sit and guide them. So you have to tell your patient, this is what the same question my patients ask me. And I tell them, don't worry. It is computer assisted or navigated surgery. And we just use the word robot. You have to downplay that robot and say, I'm going to be operating, not some mythical, C3PO. It's not going to operate on you. It's me who's going to be operating on you. So that's question number one. Your second question was in ENT. Very good question, sir. So generally, for very, very superficial things, we tend not to use robotic surgery. I have used, personally, I have published work. I have 114 publications, and I've published work on complex, innovative, minimal invasive surgery for ENT. For example, I do all the thyroids through the mouth. I go transorally in this gap between the lip and the teeth. Put 3 holes here, go right down inside, remove the thyroid through the mouth. Because after all, the thyroid came from the mouth, the thyroglosal duct. So you don't need to cut somebody's neck, these days where. So good. I've also done submandibular, minimal invasive, submandibular, all these nodes. You can make a cut here, below behind the hairline, shave the guy, make 3 or 4 holes there, and you can come from there all the way here and take out submandibular. Nerves and blood vessels are humongously magnified, sir. Every nerve will look like a rope, and every artery will look like the aorta because of the magnification and the 3D. So one of the great advantages of any robotic surgery is you will not damage arteries and veins. But my final part of my answer is that it is not, and also now people have started doing robotic, modified radical neck dissections. Brilliant. Just take a small flap and then put the robot inside. Brilliant. Only nasal surgeries, for example, and the ear surgeries haven't gotten much robotics so far. I hope that answers. I'm trying to keep my answers also short,
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Ravi, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you, Dr. Chow. Dr. Rajkumar, this is an excellent, enlightening presentation. In fact, you have cleared many things in my mind,
Yes.
But saying that, I saw in your presentation, CABG, how many, what's the percentage of them using robotic surgery today? Maybe we talk about India and Asia, Southeast Asia. We don't talk about the US or Europe. What is the percentage, and what is the success rate? And also, if it is as good as you are saying it is, why is it that many of the cardiothoracic surgeons are not moving on to robotic surgery? Secondly, Dr. Rajkumar, please give us your email address and your contact so we can contact you if anything. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent question. The honest answer is, I believe that the best way to go is to go with the truth in everything. And the honest answer is that it is not the greatest thing to happen in CABG. You're absolutely right. If it were so, everybody would be using it. It is the greatest thing to happen in radical prostatectomy. It is the greatest thing to happen in radical hysterectomy. It is the greatest thing to happen in radical colorectal surgery. It can be done for other things like modified neck dissection. Let us not get hyperbolic about something and go all berserk about it. But I've seen a beautiful thoracoscopic presentation. I tend to do robotic thoracoscopic surgery where we dissect out the esophagus. The chest is so clear. I've not done, but I've seen thoracoscopically amazing. You can see a valve being fixed, a mitral valve, and the stitches, it's a machine stitch basically. One stitch moves 2 millimeters, one stitch, and the stitch is all 360 degrees. The stitch is in, moves 2 millimeters, next stitch, whole thing is over in minutes, something that takes a cardiothoracic surgeon so long. I have no doubt that it will get there, but it has not yet gotten there. The adoption, you're absolutely right. Probably less than 2% or 3% of cardiothoracic surgeons are using it, but 80-90% of radical prostatectomies are being done robotically, and a high proportion robotic colorectal, high proportion robotic hysterectomy. I'll give you I'm just typing out my email ID, the second part of your thing, so please feel happy to contact me. I'll be very pleased to help out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raj.
Such a pleasure, sir.
Dr. Chaudhary?
Sorry, I think there was a question from from Dr. Amar Singh Chaudhary and Professor Arun Chamkar.
Dr. Chaudhary?
Sir, tell me, sir.
Dr. Chaudhary, please unmute yourself. Dr. Chaudhary, can you please unmute yourself and ask a question?
Sir, jungle mein more naach rahe, sir. We can't.
Jungle mein nacha more kisne dekha?
कैसे देख सकते sir?
Hey,
Sir,
Dr. Chaudhary, can you unmute yourself? You're muted.
सुन नहीं सकते sir, Chaudhary sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. Excellent presentation, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulate you for all this, and you have made that inertia and skepticism is the problem with robotics. I really appreciate. It was so in laparoscopic surgery 30 years back in our place.
Exactly.
But things have changed. Now laparoscopic is everyday procedure for us.
Exactly.
Similarly, robotic will increase over the time. I really appreciate, sir. And I would like to have your numbers also.
डाल दिया सर अभी
And,
chat में डाल दिया सर.
If you have any
okay,
questions,
sir. Thank
please
you
ask.
very much.
But
Congratulations.
Saurabh bhai, Tanuja ji, all of them are
Yeah,
constantly in touch with me. So just in
Absolutely.
case I'm stuck in some long study, the IJCP is like family with me.
Thank you.
And Professor Jamkar.
Yes, Dr. Jamkar.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar. I think it was a wonderful presentation. I just want to support you because I think in this audience, I am the only surgeon who
All right.
understands the limitations of open surgery. I had been doing all these laparoscopic surgery and robotic surgery. In fact, we have been doing robotic even thyroid surgery.
Fantastic.
I just want to ascertain and strengthen your talk, saying that by robotics, we increase your hand movement and facility of all those hand gestures tremendously. So that is one basic advantage. Second advantage, as you rightly said, everything is amplified. In addition, all those probes would be substantiated by technology. So you could have maybe a nerve stimulator, you could have a ultrasonic tip, so that the necessity of touch can be obviated by all these technology. So you might feel, because your ultrasound, it's far beyond what you call it as a feel. So all these gadgets could be added to the tip. Only concern would be the cost of all these equipments, because all those robotic companies, they want a dedicated hand instruments, and each instrument cost for Indian population maybe 1 lakh rupee, and therefore the handset, the equipment set itself will cost 5 lakh rupees. We might be doing some intermediate technology by second patient on same table or something like that, but that is nonsense. But I think we need to have, for at least Indian population, what do you call it, substitution for all these hand equipment, so that the cost of. Thank you.
Nice point, sir. Excellent point by Professor Jamkar. Excellent point. So to complete that point, when we do transoral, for example, sir, we have this long, it's like a hook nerve stimulator. It's beautiful. It's connected to the patient's endotracheal tube, and when you just touch the nerve, you can actually touch the recurrent nerve with that, and you can feel, because it causes contraction, you can feel the muscle contraction in the ETT. So you know that you're not hitting it. You avoid it and keep going. And wherever you cut should be a place, you use the nerve stimulator, no response, you cut there. Very valid point by Professor.
You could have a sensor put in endotracheal tube.
That's what.
Even if there is a small change, there will be pressure change.
Exactly.
Sensor, and which is not even possible by open surgery. I think
exactly
this is the basic advantage.
So I just want to add one more point, very important for all of us. They say it is not the tool that's being held by the fool, but the fool who's holding the tool that matters. So at the end of the day, you can have a robot and you can puncture the aorta or the iliac artery. I think we have to, there's no substitution for good standard surgical technique in anatomy.
Yes.
Now, in addition, in recent advances, when the D1C robot came, it was occupying so much of space that you need to have one operation theater dedicated for robotic surgery. Now, if you see the new generation, you have multiple hands, and those could be moved out, and then same operation theater could be used for robotic surgery. And similarly, we'll get more and more advantages, more and more advances. Maybe next time you could have a suitcase-based model for robotic surgery. So I think then.
Good point. Like the cell phones getting smaller and smaller. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Very
so,
good.
by the way, Dr. Jamkar was a person who gave the artificial intelligence talk last week. So he's the same person.
Oh, I see. If you don't mind, I would like to, if you could send me
I will do that.
His talk. I would like to run through the AI.
Yeah, I will connect you both.
Because that whole thing would be added with an AI. What we are planning in my company is to create a Google map like picture for doing a laparoscopic surgery.
Fabulous.
The moment you put your trocar in, it can be given in a homing thing, and then the trocar would be with all ultrasound and everything, and you will have multiple images available, how it travel, and then you could say trocar go to liver, and then the trocar will go to the liver, and then equipment will follow.
I would love
this could be some extrapolation of AI.
Yeah.
Now, if you are running the cars like a Tesla, for a say trocar to go for 1 feet is very easy thing, I think.
Nice. I want to add another little quote that some of you might like to take home from this. It's one of my favorite quotes on artificial intelligence, and I have it in my operating theater that says, artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity. Great.
But only thing is, it's at the end a computer. And if you make mistakes in input, it can create a disaster.
Garbage in, garbage out, yes.
But then that disaster, anybody can make, there is no question.
Absolutely. Lovely. Great. It's been fantastic interacting with all of you, really.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar. And, you know, I'm a physician, as Dr. Jamkar says, most of us are physicians, but nevertheless, I still go into theater once in a while, especially if my patients are being operated on by surgeon friends. So I've been to see a few prosthetic robot surgeries.
Oh, nice.
Very impressed with the Da Vinci system. And of course, appreciate the fact that the prostate is a very confined small area where even your human hands can't really enter. And the robot makes such a big difference, levels the playing field for all the surgeons. I think that's something I appreciate very much when I saw these things. And as a physician, actually, it's good to go into a theater once in a while, because we used to go in there when we were young doctors. And now, after many years, we haven't been in there. And the amount of technological advances is actually quite astounding. So I saw your nerve stimulator in place when I went to see a thyroidectomy.
Right.
And so on. Yeah, so it's really quite an eye-opener to go back into the theater at this time, you know, and see how different things are compared to 20 years ago. So yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciated. And so
may I?
Yes, Dr. Was it? President, yes.
It was really wonderful talk, Dr. Raj. Thank you very much for enlightening us. And it was excellent, simply superb. One thing I'm sure that the future belongs to robotics. I'm an ophthalmologist, and combination of AI and this robotics will definitely improve our quality of surgery in ophthalmology. In fact, in the refractive surgeries, we are using the femtosecond lasers in combination with the AI. Everything is being calculated through the computers, and then the incisions and all that is made through the machine. So, and surgeon just have to sit and see within seconds. The work we used to do in minutes and in hours, in seconds we do the laser cuttings and all that. So in ophthalmology, it's coming up, and the future definitely belongs to robotics. And more and more fields will definitely be coming up with the use of robotics. It was excellent talk, Rajkumar, the nanobots and all that. And with the coming, innovations, the scientific knowledge that is, is going into the health and medical field, I think. And lastly, I would definitely say it's not the machine, it's the man behind the machine which counts. And Rajkumar, you have very, elaboratively, enlightened us. Thank you very much, Raj.
Thank you very, very much.
Can I add one statement, Dr. Rajkumar?
Certainly, sir.
I'm at present working with robotics in knee replacement. And it has made life so easy that you could create a 3D model of the prosthesis. And we have 3D printers available, and we get that prosthesis available, which is light and porous. And once you map what is the whatever area of the bone needs to be removed, the robotic arm doesn't let you go outside at all. So it's not a complete robotic, it's a robotic arm. And I think it doesn't make you mistakes, and you are fast. So one of my friend who does this, all Dr. Narendra Vaidya, so instead of operating on 5 TKR per day, he does 15 TKR per day. And they're perfect. The next day, the patient is able to walk. So I think robotic assistance for surgery is creating miracle.
Fabulous. I'd like to come and have a look. Where are you, sir, in India?
Pune.
Pune. Sir. I will come once.
Where are you?
I'm in, I work out of Chennai, Dubai, but I'm really Musafir home. Yeah. So I will come.
So, Monica, do you have any comments, or I think otherwise we will, in the interest of time, I think there is a robotic surgery planned for Dr. Rajkumar after this session.
Yes.
Agarwal,
I would like to continue. I would like to continue a Zoom meeting and see the actual surgery. I would not mind.
Agarwal, if you want, we can actually organize some of these as live surgeries as well. We can work on that and can do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Agarwal,
short one. We don't want to bore people. 30-40 minute kind of thing. No, just like Dr. Chong has actually gone into theater, and we had a very historic meeting. If at least for that one reason, that a physician actually didn't call the surgeons barbaric. Historic meeting.
Okay. Monica, anything to say?
No, all I'm going to say out of interest of time is thank you very much. Very informative. We look forward to coming back for you to come back on this platform and for us to continue the discussion.
Absolutely.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Rajkumar for today's presentation. Wonderful. Lots of humor, lots of anecdotes, nice quotations from philosophers and kings, I believe, and religious figures throughout the decades the millennia. And so we had a wonderful time, and really a great introduction to a topic that's right on the cutting edge of and the frontiers of science and medicine. Thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Rajkumar.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone. It's been fantastic. You guys have been a great audience. Fantastic audience. God bless you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And bye-bye. Thank you.